Okay, first off, I'd like to thank the JPI team for putting a wonderful internet marketing summit together. A lot of times people have to travel to New York or out to the Silicon Valley, San Francisco area to experience a summit and kind of an internet marketing get together like this. So kudos to you guys for bringing something here to South Central Pennsylvania. So thank you. One of the other things here, one thing, kind of another housekeeping thing here, we have, basically I know a lot of people are going to have the mobile devices in here today, so we have our slide deck basically available if you go out to WebpageFX /PPT /, there's actually a mobile version, so I know it can be a little difficult to read things in the back, so the slides are basically set up there. If you're using your iPhone, they're in that JPEG format, so you can just click right through and watch them. And then I have something, I could hardly sleep last night. I was so excited. I think this is going to completely change the internet and how we conduct business. And I'm going to demo it for you guys here right now. Ta-da! Does anybody know what this is?
Doorstop.
A doorstop. That's pretty good.
Stool.
A stool. Okay, so if you have maybe somebody in a high chair, you can put it under the little baby and get them up a little bit. Anything else?
Booster seat.
Oh, booster seat. Maybe stand up. All right, you got the can of Campbell's going up for the top shelf. Get that guy down there, and you'll get you a couple extra inches there. So, no, in all seriousness, we have a lot of really good stuff to go over here today, and I'm real excited. So let's kind of hop into things. Kind of where we're going to go is we're going to start out basically figuring out, as we're building an integrated internet marketing campaign here in our strategy, we want to kind of start out figuring out, where are we currently at. That'll kind of tie into, building the long-term strategy. Also, we're going to take a look at our status, and that starts to pull into the tactics that we're going to deploy. So we're going to go into maybe some of the core tactics that WebpageFX typically uses for our clients. And then at the end, we're going to try pulling this all together and, actually building our interactive, cohesive marketing strategy here. Just a little bit about me. I had the good fortune of being 18 years old when the internet was really kind of coming about in '96. I've been addicted to internet marketing and screens with internet hookups ever since, and have found a lot of good people on our team that are equally as addicted. And we have some great customers that were early adopters, and some good stuff has happened to us over the years. Here's kind of where we want to go, I think. This is probably one of the most successful campaigns WebpageFX ever ran. No customers' names or anything like that. But basically, this is in the course of a month, and this is when some really, you build a really good strategy and can execute. We took this customer from maybe 12,000 visitors a day up around 50,000, and this isn't paid traffic, and we're not paying millions of dollars. So, you're talking about maybe a $250 million new leads, and these leads were pretty valuable, so we're talking millions and tens of millions of dollars in leads that were generated off a really good internet marketing strategy. I think it's important when we're starting out and kind of building our internet marketing strategy to think about some preliminary goals. And, I'm going to speak at a macro level here throughout this presentation. Every industry is different, every site's different, every customer, those kinds of things. But I think, in the beginning we could say, hey, at the 3-month standpoint, maybe we want to jump our leads 20%, and we don't want to do a one-for-one. We want to have maybe a 10% cost increase. So I'm just kind of throwing some stuff out there to kind of build this up and build a strategy here. Maybe at the 6-month standpoint, we want to redesign our website. We want to do a conversion rate optimization to better convert the traffic. Maybe we're trying to build up our email marketing list in 6 months. Maybe in 1 year, we want to take our leads up 60%. We could also say, hey, we want to build a stronger blog and social. And this is just, these are just bullet points here. But I think it's important to say, hey, maybe we want to have X number of people on our Facebook page, X number of people on our Twitter, following us on Twitter. Maybe have a blog. This is the number of RSS subscribers. Those kinds of things. So putting some numbers behind things is very important, and that allows us to measure things. Maybe the 2-year, we say, hey, we want to be, basically the market leader out there. Do you want to be 1% better than your next biggest competitor, or do you want to be 25 or 50%? So, trying to establish some of these things. And maybe in the longer term, if we're looking, 4 or 5 years down the road, I think you start, if you're trying to really dominate an industry and absolutely take over, I think you kind of have to look beyond your website a little bit, So you might have your website, you might have a blog, you might have some social media, those kinds of things. Maybe that gives you basically 10 web properties. But you can start to think about, there's a lot of other forms of things out there that you can control. Let's say this is a Wikipedia page, articles, news pieces, squid lenses, different kinds of, for example, a PowerPoint, I'm out on SlideShare if people want to watch that kind of thing. So, maybe building up multiple websites. Maybe you have a Twitter account, a couple of Twitter accounts that service your industry, and you sneak in stuff about your company into those accounts. So, over time, really building up some true assets that allow you to dominate your market. Some of this is ultimately, strengths and weaknesses. I think it's important to think about, what areas are you strong in, and on the web, strength is kind of is much different than, you know, maybe this is a traditional warehouse, these are the people, or this is the manufacturing capabilities that I have. So, you know, things like such as the number of links, the amount of content, the number of emails that you have, maybe some of the weaknesses that you have would be, let's say we haven't really done much with social media, we just kind of tipped our toe in the water, maybe we don't have a blog right now, you know, we haven't done much with usability, maybe the design decisions were made, they were basically HIPPO, and that kind of stands for highest paid person's opinion, and, you know, basically those decisions weren't made off of numbers or taking a look at conversions. So, you know, I think the thing is that as we're kind of going through and we're going to build up our strategy, it's important to think about, you know, what haven't we done, so maybe we can front load that a little bit and, you know, get that into the beginning of the campaign. And maybe there's a channel, you know, a marketing tactic that's working really well for us. So in that regard, maybe we want to, you know, something's working, throw gas on the fire and continue to dominate that channel. So, you know, trying to identify some upfront strengths and weaknesses. And this would be a quick competitive analysis. This is just maybe if I'm an e-commerce store, some of the features and functionality that's there. But I think you would do a competitive analysis in a lot of areas. You could say, this is how good our content is. This is, you know, our social media, and kind of do an analysis on, you know, where your competitors in the industry and then where yourself, and then basically, you know, kind of figuring out, you know, where you need to go a bit. You know, I think everybody's done this. This is nothing new to anyone here. And but I think the takeaway from this slide is that ultimately, you know, your customer on the website can be much more targeted, so you can kind of redefine things a lot better. You know, let's say I think the overused one is if you're, you know, if you're a party supply company in York, PA, and you're servicing York County, you can obviously sell your products nationally. But you know, a step further than that might be maybe you're an e-commerce store and you translate the website into Spanish or bilingual, or maybe we even do French and we go after Canada, and then we go after the Americas. And if you're able to do that, I mean, the organization needs to have the infrastructure to kind of pull those kinds of things up. But some of our clients have seen some amazing returns when they've stepped into some other markets. You know, I'm going to keep this. Some of it's going to be very basic. Some of it's going to be more advanced. It's a pretty diverse crowd in here. So the one thing is basically, you know, this is just basically, as you can see in the yellow, these are organic results, and this is natural search engine optimization that I'm going to talk about. Some of the advantages, this SEO tends to be, we do probably 50% of the internet marketing where we do a WebpageFX is SEO. Tends to be the highest return on investment across the board. You know, you could be a nonprofit, you could be, you know, a different organization. Obviously, e-commerce and lead generation, those kinds of customers are really going to go after SEO. So it tends to have a very high return on investment. If you're looking at maybe 1 year, 3 years, 5 years for search engine optimization, it tends to be a low cost of traffic. You know, it's kind of the gift that keeps giving. You're not paying for every person. These are the natural results that people are clicking through. The longevity is very good on it. You know, let's say you're doing search engine optimization, and you know, maybe if we're having a bad quarter, whatever, we have to stop doing what we have to do. Stop doing search. You know, basically, it's not like those results fall off the next day. So you might lose a couple of rankings, but for the majority of it, you know, you're still going to be receiving traffic after you stop that campaign. The only real disadvantage to organic search here is basically the duration. It usually takes maybe 3 months to kind of get some really good rankings and traffic going. You know, that all varies. If you have a new website in a competitive industry, e-commerce industry or something like that, it might take a year to actually rank that website and really get some good traffic. But then again, you can have a really established site that's never been optimized and get some rankings in 2-3 weeks. One thing that's a little interesting, search is my true love, so I'll talk a little bit more about it. But one thing that's kind of interesting here is that this is kind of the search demand curve. And to explain this, 30% of demand is in the very popular search terms. And then the next piece, the long tail, actually receives. This is where you're stringing maybe the 3 or 4 or 5 different keywords together. Actually, it gets, you know, 70% of searches and has a much higher conversion rate. So, you know, sometimes it's actually better to think about going after maybe 200 terms, 300 terms, 400 terms versus just saying, hey, this is some dream term. I wish I could come up on like restaurants or something like that, where there's a very extreme competition out there. And you know, if you're ranking for 200, 300 terms, you're probably going to get just as much traffic, if not more, and it'll probably be better converting traffic. The next one here is basically, this is you know, these are the organic search results 1 through 10 here. The one thing, and my numbers may be a little bit different in the research that I've done, but just a good little chart here. The interesting takeaway is that the top, so everybody knows they want to be in the first page, top 3. top 5, first position here. I mean, obviously that's where the traffic is. But the difference between the first position, maybe let's say out of 100 people that search, 50% of people will click that first search result. Once we start getting down to the bottom of the page, even to go into like the 4th position, I'd say 4th position is probably 6 or 7 out of 100. So there's a drastic difference in the amount of traffic that you will get, even as you move up that page, and especially the first position, which is, gets several times more clicks than even the second position. There's a lot of things coming into search. Obviously, we start to see, news and maps and video and images and all these other kinds of media are starting to show up, even social and stuff like that, in organic search now. So I'm just going to break one out. I think it's applicable for some businesses in here. One thing, basically one of the maps are basically perfect. So if this is I just did a search for plumber in Harrisburg, PA, and basically a lot of this comes off of your actual business address. So this is really, these are very cost-effective to get set up, doesn't take long, and typically when the maps are displayed, they probably get 60 to 70% click-through on that first page. So these get a very high click-through and tend to convert really well. The only disadvantage to basically local or going after the maps piece is you do need a physical address. So if you're looking to expand into Baltimore, Philadelphia, those kinds of things, and you don't have an address there, you're not going to have the opportunity to show up the maps. The next one here, just at a basic level, pay-per-click is basically these yellow ads you see three at the top and then down the right-hand side. Kind of the way this works, and I'm oversimplifying everything. There's probably 30, 40 factors, but essentially it's to explain how this works. The top position might be $1.50, the next position might be $1.25, the third position down might be $1 that you're paying. So when somebody clicks that, actually, if you're in the third position, basically you're being charged $1 for somebody when they click through in that result. Well, some of the advantages and disadvantages of pay-per-click are, the nice thing about pay-per-click is very fast. You could actually have a campaign running up. If you already have your keywords, maybe in 5 minutes. So that's one really nice thing versus maybe organic search. That's going to take some more time. So you can get them running quick, drive it as leads, drive it in sales, whatever our business goals are. The geo-targeting is great. You can say I want a 25-mile radius around our office. I can pick specific regions. It goes into longitude and latitude. I can get very precise on where I want my ads to display. The next thing is you also control the conversion funnel. That's when somebody clicks through the ad, you can take them to a specific page. You can take them through a funnel, essentially, of where you want that person to go, and you can target your message accordingly. So that's a little bit nice too, because you're really controlling how those people interact with your site. Some of the other things that are coming into play is, obviously you can go after some, within pay-per-click, you can also go after, let's say, mobile devices and sites. Like, let's say, I think, perfect audience is YouTube. I can really target, just specifically YouTube. Some of the disadvantages, I guess, if you believe in the efficient market system, I'd say in, let's say, 2002, 2003, we had a lot of customers that were, they pay a nickel a click, and we're getting an outstanding return. I would say things continue to get more and more competitive, and the cost ultimately of those clicks becomes much more, closer to what people are actually getting out of there. And there's other factors, how good is your website, how good is your product, how's your pricing, how's the branding. So there's a lot of other things that come into play. But over time, that continues to get more competitive and actually closer to probably what that true value of that traffic is worth. And I would say the longevity, basically the day you stop paying Google is the day or the second you stop paying Google or AdSense or whoever else you're using is the day that basically those ads stop displaying and that traffic comes in. One thing too, in my slide deck, it's hard to see here, but basically I kind of have some tools here. So if you guys download these or pull it up on mobile devices, there's some sites you can check out. For example, there's like an editor here that I'm recommending in Google AdWords you can download, and then there's basically it's called Word Tracker, and there's a tool to come up with some additional keyword ideas. Don't try to read this and squint your eyes. It's also available for download. We're hopping into social media here is another tactic that we can use to as we're building up our integrated strategy. The one thing I think is the takeaway here that I want to drive home for social is there's so many different sites, so it's difficult for me to speak at a macro level. So all these networks have their own advantages and disadvantages. But at a high level, I'd say social tends to be great for customer communication. Brand exposure tends to be really good. The level of targeting, social has brought some really new ways to target customers in, which is outstanding. And again, this is stuff that's at a very high macro level across the board. I'd say typically tends to be lower for lead generation. People that are looking to do lead generation. And then basically I've seen people spend a lot of time, bit of a time hog. If you don't have an upfront strategy in place up front, We've seen some customers before they came to us, have invested a lot of time into it. And then at the bottom, basically, there's a couple of tools there that do a good job of kind of monitoring and keeping you up to date as to how your social, who's talking about you, and keeping track of that.